Welcome back to a new episode of the Stormwater World podcast. Thanks for hanging out with us. Shout out to our sponsor, Bloxam & Company. They have a sediment and erosion control stormwater inlet filter that's made of coconut fiber. I've known Eric Pierman and the gang over there at Bloxam for years. We've done business with them in the past, and we continue to do business with them to this day. It's a great product, and it's very simple to install. It comes in pads or rolls that you can customize to just about any stormwater drain, and it's very, very simple to maintain as well. You get a great visual when driving your site because you don't have to stop and look down into the drain. You can literally just put this product over the top of the drain inlet, and then you're going to see the sediment on top of it. After a rain event, you can have someone sweep it off and get prepared for the next event. They also offer a free sample, so make sure to check them out. You can go to bloxam.com, that's BLOCKSOM.com, or you can contact them at 219-363-0206, or shoot Eric an email at eric.pierman, that's PEARMAN, at bloxam.com. He can answer any of your questions you may have, as well as let you know where the closest distributor is in your area. Thanks. Let's get back to the episode. Hey, everyone. Welcome back to a new episode of the Stormwater World podcast. I'm excited today to have a friend of mine, Phillip Taylor, here with us on the podcast, and everybody knows. And I think the word must be getting out because I can tell that I tell everybody that they get an introduction. And these introductions continue to get longer and more robust as I have more and more guests on the show. So I think the cat's out of the bag. But regardless, Phil deserves it. He's got over 30 years in the industry. So here we go. Phillip Taylor brings more than 30 years of experience in civil engineering and stormwater management, starting his career in New Zealand and the UK before helping shape the modern proprietary stormwater industry in the United States. He began as a civil engineering technician, working on roads, drainage, bridges, and public infrastructure, advancing into design, contract supervision, and municipal engineering roles. He later moved into product development and market education, helping introduce the segmental retaining wall market in New Zealand and building technical literature, training programs, and market adoption strategies. Phil transitioned to the U.S. in the early 2000s, joining Hydro International during a formative period in stormwater regulation and proprietary technology adoption. Working alongside industry pioneers, including Professor Bob Ando, he gained exposure to research, engineering rigor, and national regulatory development. Hydro's small technical culture allowed him to work across development approvals, design tools, technical support, and field work from Canada to Texas, giving him a broad perspective on the evolving U.S. stormwater market. Over nearly 20 years, Phil has become a national voice for performance-driven stormwater design, vortex flow control, and system evaluation grounded in transparency and life cycle outcomes. Today, he focuses on active flow control, data-driven stormwater analytics, and emerging digital AI workflows that support engineered judgment and regulatory clarity. He now leads Streamline LLC, advising technology providers, consultants, and agencies on practical innovation, regulatory pathways, and stormwater performance strategy.
Wow.
Phil, welcome to the podcast. How are you, sir?
Thanks, Ty. I'm glad to be here.
Well, that was a mouthful, and rightfully so. I've seen you, and we've bumped into each other for the small drop in the water, if you will, time I've been in the industry since 2012. So I'm happy to have you on the podcast, and I guess we should just start at the beginning. You want to tell me kind of how you got into stormwater?
You know, when I think back a long way, back to New Zealand, my first job was in stormwater. Even though I didn't recognize it as such at the time, I worked as a field assistant for a local water and soil conservation society. And I spent a lot of my time carrying a staff around doing stream surveys, river gauging, erosion control gauging, and it was boring stuff, right? Walking around, carrying a staff, standing still, waiting for the engineer to do his readings and then say, move on. But that was the grassroots and the critical sort of basic stuff of floodplain management, is looking at the flows of the rivers, the streams, the erosion out in the community, out in the rural parts of the world. It was it was a good start. It really set that sort of stage. But I moved on to my engineering studies and started to work in municipal engineering through the local county engineering office. That's where I got exposed to stormwater design, wastewater design, roading infrastructure, all the county functions that were done at that time within the engineering office of the county. So, and that was before we have CAD, before we had, and this is really aging myself, right?
I was like, wait, stop.
We
Before
had drawing machines. Yeah. So you talk about a transition of time. I did travel through. I moved from there to Auckland City in New Zealand, where I actually took up a role as a roading engineer for some time, and that was my first exposure to digital infrastructure, because I was responsible for installing a computer-assisted traffic control system which coordinated the traffic systems, the traffic lights through the city I was working in. So that was the first sort of digital infrastructure, and we had the first computers and stuff and mainframes to work with.
Gotcha.
From there, I actually went overseas for a while. I lived in the UK. It's a common thing for Kiwis and Australian people to really move to the UK for a while and get out of these small islands in the far South Pacific and expose yourself to the rest of the world. And I worked as just a temporary engineer, taking various contract roles for about 3.5 years while traveling around the world, seeing a lot of the world, backpacking and traveling. I met my wife, who's from Michigan originally, in Turkey during that trip. So that's sort of how it's a long story, but that's how I ended up in America.
What? Wait, you met your wife in Turkey and she's from Michigan?
Yeah. Bumped into her
That's
at
cool.
Ephesus in Turkey.
How long have you guys been married? Are you still married?
20 years now. Yeah,
okay, cool.
20 years. Yeah, we had a long
Congratulations.
relationship for a while as well. So. But
That's
eventually
awesome.
settled it. Yeah, it was the US was one as the country to settle in.
So when did you get to the US? What year was that?
Yeah, so 2005. Really, I became a full-time resident, and 2010, 2011, something like that. I became a citizen.
Oh, cool.
And I started with hydro in 2006 and have been there since. So, and that was a really fortunate role to get in a company like that, a research-based company that put a lot of the emphasis on product development and research rather than just sales and product commoditization. So they really did drive a lot of the narrative around testing, along with companies like Contech, some of the major stormwater companies out there that also focus a lot on research and development. And, that helped me make that transition into the US, basically, because it is a different type of, different countries work differently. And,
can you explain that a little bit? Like, I mean, I guess the differences that you are aware of, like that you've seen firsthand, the difference in the stormwater or how they handle it or approach it or think about it.
Yeah. There wasn't a lot of stormwater focus through my early years. Right, stormwater was managed as a problem for flooding. It was to be piped and disposed of. That a stormwater control measure consisted of a manhole inlet pipe and a bit of riprap at the outfall to stop erosion. That was about it. In New Zealand, a lot of rural properties actually capture the water off the roof and drink it and put it into a cistern and pipe it straight back into the house and drink it straight. So by default, it becomes detention in the rural communities, but in the urban environment, it's just simply piped away to the street or direct pipe to discharge. So that results in a lot of direct discharge. Now, coming to the US, the focus changed. There was regulation starting, right? We had the the EPA involved, right, and the Water Quality Act and the National Pollution Discharge Eliminations and the CSO systems the pipelines are being separated to separated systems. And it was when they separated the stormwater, you started to realize, hey, the stormwater is just as dirty as the wastewater. And now it has to be addressed because now you had the ability to point to something and go, hey, there's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
There's your problem, right? So the US market has really, and coming from a country like New Zealand, which is an island nation, you're surrounded by the ocean. So a lot of the discharge goes directly to the ocean. And the ocean has a great ability to deal with pollution because it's a saltwater environment, tremendous dilution. Whereas in the US, you've got discharged large freshwater bodies. And those freshwater bodies are an asset that towns and cities use. So when you start polluting them, people notice. And that, I think, has driven a lot of the incentive really is to clean those up so that people can use them again, right? Because they're now an asset. Fresh water is really an asset that a country needs. It's almost a national security issue, right? Because if you don't have fresh water, you don't have a lot. You can't manufacture, you can't drink, you can't do cropping, you can't do a lot. So fresh water is a critical piece of infrastructure.
Yeah, you better be careful. That's a whole conversation in itself, Phil. We could, I mean, if you want to rip off that Band-Aid, we could talk about the importance of water in general, right? But
there's another person or two that would be better on that. You know, talk to Sonny Westcott he was ex Homeland Security's meteorologist. Talk to her about pods of stormwater and.
Hey, she's welcome. Yeah. If you do the introduction, I'd love to. I mean, I agree with you. Like up to the level of national security, I don't know if I've heard anybody say that, but I 100% agree.
Well, when you look at infrastructure and how we're going with digital infrastructure, managed infrastructure, water supplies, power supply, rail and roading, and it's all been digitized and mainframe managed. That becomes a critical level of national security against hacking, and it becomes a point of attack, right? We see the news, right? Airline systems and stuff getting hacked now and then. So the stormwater industry is heading that way slowly as well. And so that's part of my interest in moving forward is in that digitization of the infrastructure, because we're working in the blind with stormwater still. You know, it's treated as a passive system by and large, and that I don't think is working. Not on the scale at which we develop cities, not at the scale at which we really want to do improvements. Passive management of stormwater just won't get us where we want to be.
Yeah, I agree. And then you keep putting these Band-Aids out there that we can rip off. Like you just talk about the digitization and the controls that are in place, and then we could take a side quest into our aging electrical grid and the problems that affect them, but then of course trickle down and affect the water. So we don't want to get we don't want to scare everybody to death. But hey, it is what it is. You need some clean water to drink, and unfortunately, a lot of it is powered in the background. So let's keep going forward through a little bit of your career. Like you come US, you get, you're working with hydro, and then you got some opportunity there. And I guess that probably helped formulate, and some of how you were able to, perceive the industry. What do you see that we're doing good? What do you see that's changing? Let's kind of get into some of the newer stuff. Let's bring it, let's bring it a little closer to 2025.
Yeah. So, as that working with hydro and was a tremendous learning opportunity. Really fortunate. Working for a small company that focused on research, that had labs, had experienced people, and at a time where the industry was starting to grow in terms of regulation. And I'm going to touch back a little bit on the past, because when I started,
Okay.
and I started as a regional sales manager for the Midwest area, every city, every county, every state had a different set of regulations. And in some areas that included watershed districts as well. So you could stand on one piece of land, face three different directions, and face three different regulations, the way just on how the water ran off that from that point. So if you had a site that was on a watershed boundary, it's a lot of difficulty getting approval through. But so we had that situation going on, right? So we had lots of teams trying to get approvals with every DOT, every city, every county that had different approval or wanted approval. And this really pertains to the proprietary stormwater, right? It was this magic box thing that no one trusted. You come and tell people that, hey, this box will do as good as that pond over there, sort of thing. Approve it to me. So you got to do the approvals thing. So that was, moving forward, right? So moving forward, we've gone on almost 15, 20 years, and a lot of those people gave up and said, this is too hard. We can't manage all these approval systems, and they dropped off. And a lot of those people inherited those roles, right? They weren't experts in stormwater. They were regulatory approval people. They were administrators. They were roading engineers or the stormwater engineers, and they had no idea what this equipment was that we were bringing out and promising the world with. But things have changed. We've got far better educated engineers now, administrators and approval engineers who are subject matter experts. And it's really rewarding to go and talk to them now. And that we've consolidated the industry where there is not the need for 100 different approvals is gone. That New Jersey, NJCAT, NJDEP, Washington DOE, by and large, have come to the top as the standard for approvals, and that we can test through those protocols, and people understand what we're doing, and they accept the quality of the data that's coming out of those test programs now. So that's made life a little easier, and also, equipment manufacturers have got smarter. They've got more educated about what the equipment can and can't do, and how to manage expectations for this equipment as well, and also to where to apply what equipment to what situation. There is the right piece of equipment for the right situation, and when to say, no, that's the wrong application for that piece of equipment. And so the industry's become very well educated. Having said all that, it's still, I think, we're just learning what we can and can't do. And how big the task is ahead, and how complicated stormwater is. Chemistry-wise, things change every day. It's a very dynamic situation when you're trying to treat stormwater because of the variability of what's in the runoff from nutrients, PFOS, PFAS, sediment, turbidity, temperature. And it all varies between storms depending on intensity. The whole lot is dynamically variable, which makes it a tremendous.
Do you think that?
Yeah.
Do you think the local regulations get in the way? I mean, because the stormwater doesn't care where the stormwater doesn't care where the boundary is. The water doesn't care. It just goes, like, it's just following gravity. And so do you think there's a better way, or
there is
experience?
And there's a multi-level answer to that question. Is that when you start treating water on a watershed basis, there is an attempt. There are organizations trying to manage watersheds. And within those, and those watersheds, when you look at the Mississippi watershed, are enormous global scale watersheds. But they all feed from smaller and smaller watersheds as you go upstream. So you've got the watershed districts, you've got that sort of thing going on, but then you get down to the local level and you're dealing with, you keep chasing it upstream, eventually you get to a single site. And so your question is regulation helping, hindering? Yeah, we're managing a massive watershed based on site level regulations generally, right? So we're talking about individual cities who regulate individual sites of half an acre to 1 acre to 10 acres, and all these feed in. So, and there's been some studies done by the University of Minnesota where they look at site level regulation to see how it impacts the watershed level quality, water quality. And especially when it comes to flood management, that the site level regulation is probably not adequate to address watershed level flooding. So there's a bigger picture that still has to evolve, I think, around the management of site level regulation in line with watershed level management or landscape level management. That's something I think is a bit of a disconnect, and is regulation helping us or hindering us? Bit of both, I think.
Right. A little bit of both.
Yeah, I was thinking about this way. You have, and this is no fault of anyone, it's just the way it's evolved. Somewhere years ago, someone put a good idea into a stormwater map or managed to write a reasonably good stormwater map.
Right.
And it addressed certain things. But it might have had one or two wonky ideas in it. But someone said, that's a good manual, let's copy it. Let's use that as our basis and save ourselves some time. And then someone sort of said, let's take the best of those two and copy those. And so there are some, so it becomes an evolution of manuals where no one sat down and said, can we actually do it better now that we know better, rewrite the whole manual? Said, that's a big job, right? No one wants to do that. So let's just copy that.
Nobody wants to do that.
Yeah, and so you get these areas where there are some nonsensical regulations, and you get these pockets of areas where there's really forward-thinking regulations. And when we start to really, this is where it gets a little tricky, because now you say, okay, a lot of those regulations are written around administrative processes where you need to approve something for a permit, and there's a series of boxes that need to be ticked, that you did this and that, and you fight that, right? And some of those regulations are using, for instance, working out detention volumes based on a simple spreadsheet for sites less than a certain size, which generally assume a constant discharge for some orifice control from that detention system, which is not correct. Engineering, mathematically wise, correct. But you could do that, you tick a box. So chances are that if there's a bunch of those little sites using that simple spreadsheet, it's probably resulting in an incorrect estimate of all those combined discharges. So the actual flow coming off that area is not matching really what you've done if you'd done it with a hydrological model and accounted for variable head stage discharge. And when you put enough of those small areas together, you get a big area that's not being managed through a hydrograph. It's being managed through a simple spreadsheet. Right. So regulations need to smarten up on what technology is available, and maybe regulators need to start thinking about, we need to model all these sites with hydrographs and not make simple assumptions. Because you put enough.
That's a big ask. That's a big ask. Right?
But when you take that a step further, Tide, I know you're working in the digital space. As we modernize stormwater, and we start to put instrumentation out there, and we start to get real-time data, that's going to force us to go back and revisit the models or the assumptions, right? Because it's going to say what you thought was happening doesn't match what we're measuring. So you better go back and recalibrate what your model, and that's the exciting stuff about moving forward in this industry, because we haven't really done that, right? And we're moving into that phase.
Yeah. So like what you're saying, there's like there may be a light at the end of the tunnel, right? You're optimistic, right? It's not a train. It's the light at the end of the tunnel.
There is a light, but it's going to take. We need real time data. We need that instrumentation on the networks that feed into a system where you can look at it and go, okay, we got 2.5-inch storm and in 24 hours, and this is what came out of that. And you can start associating not only the runoff, but the pollutant load for a watershed. and also where in the storm that pollutant load occurred in relation to that storm hydrograph. Yeah. So you can start making real informed decisions about how to manage that water.
Yeah, and I don't think people will realize yet how much data you can push into an AI and have it look for the anomalies that you need, and how much faster the data crunching it has become. To where you don't have to. It's not this crazy impossible task.
Yeah.
If you can just get the data, you can find the answer you're looking for, or you can see what's going on because of what's available at our fingertips now.
Yes, because we make assumptions based on past history. And one of the ones that kind of stuns me a little bit is the first flush theory of pollutant water runoff. And when I dug into that, I like to dig into history a little bit, try and find the origins of stuff. And I believe that goes back to a Caltrans study years ago where they created it by putting sprinklers on a piece of road, basically, and then seeding that piece of road with sediment, and then running the sprinklers and working out the pollutant load versus time. Right?
Wow.
And it was a uniform rectangular piece of ground. And so the first flush was created. They said, well, I mean, we really noticed in the study that the highest pollutant load was in the first, let's say 20% of water.
Mm.
But if you had strung that around and said, okay, well, not all catchments are regular rectangles, and not all storm intensities are instantaneous. So if you start taking a watershed or a catchment area that's long and narrow, and then you might find that your pollutant load is constant through the whole watershed because it's running off from at different times from different parts. So you might get a more constant pollutant load, or you might have
traffic.
Sort of thing. So something that where the pollutant load is, and we design equipment to treat the first flush. And it could be that we're missing it, right? Or we could, if we had instant ways of measuring that pollutant load, we would know that, hey, divert that water to treatment, but here's the clean water. Just bypass that treatment system and let it go. So that's the sort of thing that I think instrumentation will really give us, and AI will give us that ability to do. If we can look upstream and go, here comes the pollution, and then divert that water to an appropriate water treatment system. And that might mean diverting it into detention where we hold it for a while, or then putting it through a filtration system or even a UV system or something else to really target a pollutant of concern. Then we're going to see a massive increase in the quality of the water, right? We're going to reduce pollutants significantly. And we're not going to waste money treating water that we don't need to treat. That to me is the end game here, is that it'll help us manage the money. Because one of the biggest challenges we have at the moment, if we did no new BMPs, if we did nothing new, went out and maintained everything we had every 6 months to a year, we'd probably have a massive bump in water quality results, because we're not doing that, right? When there's not enough, we're spending money maintaining maybe equipment that doesn't need to be maintained, and we're not maintaining equipment that should be maintained. And I think, I'm going to throw ponds into that, right? Most common BMP out there is a pond. The states have 10,000, 20,000 ponds or more each. And they cost $100 to $500 to $1 million to clean each. So if you start measuring the water quality of those, depends which ones are working, which ones, and start focusing on those that aren't.
And we won't even talk about the loss to real estate that they create. But
the ponds, I don't feel it's lost real estate, but we do get that when you're developing high value land in cities, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everyone, especially if you're working up in the mountains in Colorado and you're dealing in aspen, and someone says, I'm going to take it for a pond, that land has such a high value. They're going to say, no, you're going to put it underground because the land value is so high, I need to put a building on it. And there's no space to go anywhere because you've got mountains either side in these valleys. And then you trout stream right through the middle of the city.
Let's talk a little bit about what you've been doing recently. Like you've taken all that experience and now you've created a streamline
.us, yeah, Streamline
LLC.
LLC,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. STL. You can go to check out the website. It's stline.us, and we'll tag it in the show notes. But so is it, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's like a consulting company. It's you've taken your brain power and now you're outsourcing yourself. Is that what
Yeah,
we're doing?
yeah, yeah. After 19 years in the industry, almost 20 years in the industry, to be honest with you, like many, I was laid off in a corporate restructure. People got scared by tariffs, and they decided that they would adjust their business practices accordingly. And so my role was eliminated, and I was doing a lot of marketing and training. Right, easy to eliminate those sort of roles. Their costs, they're not revenue generators. But anyway, I wasn't angry about it or anything like that. That's just business. But when I looked in retrospect, I go, actually, maybe they're doing me a favor here, and moving, because it opens up opportunity. And after speaking to a few people, they're saying, hey, you've got a lot of experience. You should maybe think about, setting yourself up as a consultant and just sharing some of that experience and
Absolutely.
doing what you really enjoy doing. And I sort of reached out to a couple of companies that I knew and said, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. And a couple came back and said, we've got some work for you. There's something you can do here. And other people have come along and said, hey, here's an idea. Why don't you do this? That's good. I hadn't thought about that. So I'm going through that development stage now and going, okay, this is working. I can do this, and I can create a work-life balance that is more suited me at my stage in my career, where I'm thinking I don't want to be, I don't want to be too focused on building a career. It's time to start sharing that information and using that experience and giving it to others, and really leveraging what you've learned to benefit myself, and make a job that I really enjoy doing for myself. And that's where I'm at the moment. And my wife, she comments like, I really like what you're doing. It's really flexible. It's like, you want to take a day off, you take a day off, right?
Right. That's so funny.
No one's saying, where are you? It's like, so she's is fully encouraging as well and supportive of doing this.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
What, do you have any projects that you're currently working on that you could talk about, or anything you want to share, or any kind of neat stuff going on?
Well, I am doing some tool development, but unfortunately, there's NDAs and stuff that you sign when you start working for other companies.
Yeah. Step lightly. I just, if you can't, that's cool. It's obvious you have a lot of experience. So
what I have done is I've partnered up with a company called floodcon.com. Okay, that's John Rasmussen, who's down in Alabama. He does digital.
I know those guys.
Yep, digital flow controls and active flow controls, and that's an area that really interested me, and I really wanted to work with and look at how we can retrofit existing infrastructure with improved outlet flow control structures, because that is an area where I think we can make a lot of impact for minimal investment. And John is a really enthusiastic, educated modeler, developer, and I could feel I was going to learn a lot from him, and that we could work together well. We both have a passion for active flow controls and really focusing on improving existing infrastructure and doing things in a better way. And the energy that you get from it is wonderful. So that's where I'm going to be focusing my personal development for the next few years. I'm going to be out there promoting these flow control systems.
Nice.
And then working with other companies on maybe modeling of like WindSlam. In Wisconsin, where I live, the WindSlam program, I might do some contract modeling of that sort of thing. Just a variety of things. My interest also, AI. You, as you are aware, AI.
that's kind of how we
is,
got it started,
yeah.
right? Because I spoke on AI in Ohio, and then we got to have a conversation, and it led
Mhm.
to us being on this podcast. So
Yeah.
yeah, I love me some AI.
Yeah. So, AI is a watershed moment in human history. I don't think
Absolutely.
people fully comprehend just how big it is until you start using AI. And I've been sort of upskilling myself in ChatGPT and Gemini and a few others, and realize it's not a sort of like plug and play system. You have to learn about AI and and it's appearing everywhere. And some of the funny things, I've been using it for app development in Excel, and it can take you down a rabbit hole that you have to back it out of. You got to stop it, say back up. There's a different way of approaching this, but it will go down that rabbit hole unless you stop it. And knowing what to ask, what not to ask, and to be very explicit about what you want is tricky. That's the key to, you've got to
Mm-hmm.
really manage the AI system. People think, oh, yeah, I ask a question, gives me lots of, it will take you in all sorts of directions. And one of the things that I think is favorable to myself and people like me who have been in the industry for years, senior stormwater managers, you can look at an answer and know whether it's in the ballpark or whether it's right or wrong, or think, okay, I need to look at that more closely. That's not the answer I was expecting. Was I wrong? Was it wrong? So this is where experience comes in, right? AI needs someone experienced in the driver's seat for now. It's getting better every day. That's the scary thing. It's never as good as, today is the worst it'll be. Tomorrow it will be better.
That's right.
Right?
That's right. Yep. Yep.
But for
Yep.
now, you need that experience to moderate it, right? And it's been a lot of fun actually doing app development. And at times, I tell you, you swear at it. You go, you got to stop, back up. The answers are wrong. Why are you going down
Yep.
this way? It's like a child at times.
Absolutely.
It can be a lot
I've
of
just
fun.
gotten to the point, and I don't know if you've noticed this with recent updates on ChatGPT. I just gotten to the point where I just tell it, just don't be agreeable. Like, don't be
Yeah.
agreeable with me. I don't
That,
want you to think critically.
yes, that's one of the things.
Think
It's always
critically and
positive.
provide
Yeah.
accuracy. Yeah,
I,
I
I,
just tell
uh,
it, I just tell it to knock it off. Don't be agreeable. Don't agree with me. And I also try not to steer it with my question. I try not to steer it in a certain. I try not to make it lean in any direction with the way I form my questions when
yeah.
I'm
And what I
prompting
also
it.
learned, you'll ask a question and it will go like a bullet at a gate. And you've got to say, stop. I want to have a conversation. I want to reason this out. And before anything happens, we need to agree an action on the next step. Otherwise, it's 20 steps ahead of you.
Yeah.
Before you've even thought about what you're like,
Yeah.
I can do. You're on step one trying to understand what it just spat out in terms of
Yeah.
code. It's on step 20, moving forward,
Yeah.
and you got to pull it back.
Yeah, or just the way it answers, or code, or like it'll just offer a bunch of stuff. And you're like, relax. That's not. I don't want.
Well,
Don't quit
this
offering
is
me
a
all this
scary
stuff.
thing, right? Because if you plug something
Yeah.
like this to a management system and it's making decisions on how to manage something,
Yeah.
that's tricky stuff, right? So this is where
Well, and it,
we're in it.
yeah, that's why it's gotta you've got it. It's got to be trained. And you could, and I think people should go back if you're listening to this. If you're still with us, thank you. And if you play with AI, work on your profile. Like you can set up your own profile, whether you're trying to get it to help you for personal or business or whatever, or just talk to it. If you don't know what to tell it, ask it. Like ask me questions so that you can build the best profile possible on me. And then don't let other people use your account.
Yeah.
Don't do a shared account. Just spend the $20. Don't let your wife use it. Don't let your kids use it. Just let it build a profile against you. Because the other thing is, if you've been talking to it for a while, nobody else has been using it. It already knows a lot of stuff about you, and the fact that we got a bunch of stuff on the internet about us, and it can kind of start to formulate and really help you see blind spots.
Yes.
It really can help you see some blind spots when you're working on different projects. So I like to call it a second brain, and in that order, right? Just like you were saying, like it could get a little scary, but I feel like that the human aspect will still be, it's not replacing us at mass scale like everybody thinks.
No, but
I honestly believe there's a lot of companies out there that are taking advantage, and they're blaming it on AI, and they're just taking advantage of it, and just, hey, this is a good time to get rid of some fluff,
yeah,
and we'll just blame it on AI.
yeah.
So like it's
There
not
are some
gonna
things though
it's not.
that from my point of view, and I look at this and I talk to companies, and this comes to the marketing side of things and engineering, right? AI is from my example, AI has allowed me to do stuff in Excel that I would have required a programmer to do. And it can do it as equally as well as a programmer. But I need to know that my experience tells me that the equations is using it right, that the results are right? So I can develop quite complex design tools in Excel now using AI to develop the code, but I need that, I know what the numbers should be. When you talked, I've talked to companies like Autodesk. Now, these are software companies that are going to be going full blast of developing AI systems. And these AI systems are going to be design systems for engineers. So an engineer is going to come into an office and they're going to turn their computer on and they're going to talk about the project to the AI feature. They're going to describe the land use. They're going to describe everything. They're going to give it some inputs and plans. And they're going to talk about what the regulations are. And the AI can go out and get the regulations and everything. So they're having a discussion about the design and the AI. And this is where there's a tremendously good video done by Stantec and Autodesk that talks about optimization in the digital space, right? So these projects will be designed and optimized within a digital space. And that'll move through the design phase to the permitting phase to the bid phase, fully optimized. Because the AI can look at things that an engineer, and give you an example. I was doing a local seminar with a chorus here in Walkie, and we were talking about hydrobrakes and vortex valves. And someone asked a question the other day. They said, how do I find out about this technology? Like, I didn't know this existed, even though it's been developed in the 1960s. As an engineer, didn't know what a vortex valve was and how it could be used. Well, an AI doesn't need to sit in on a webinar to find out that. An AI can go out into the web and find all these different solutions, work out how to use them, put them into the model and say, here's your solution. This is the recommended solution. This is going to be this. We're going to use these products. And he's going to go, I have no idea what that product is, but it's telling me to use it. Right? You never heard of it.
Yeah.
But now you got to do a little sanity check and say, what's it put in there? Is it a real thing? Or did it just invent something?
Did it make it up? Exactly. Yeah.
But now, so now the question becomes, if you're a company that supplies equipment and you've got all your products behind a login wall and the AI can't get to it, and there's a company out there that has a new piece of equipment that doesn't have a budget for a big marketing plan, but it's a fantastic new widget. The AI finds it.
That's right.
The AI goes, I've found this great solution for you, and it's going to be everywhere in a minute. And you go, and as a sales manager, you might go, how did that happen? Never heard of this.
That's right.
And there are all the plans now because they worked out how to sell to an AI.
Yeah, that's what we talk about to our manufacturers that we represent. As you are well aware that, we have our marketing agency that's the fuel behind the podcast. And so now that's what keeps me up at night is I'm trying to make sure that we can position everybody to where they'll show up and
that's the scary thing, right? Because this is
in searches and whatnot. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And then I was talking to some other people about this. How do you sell to an AI question? And I said, well, people always want to talk to people. And I thought, I think you're wrong there. People are going to be talking to the AI as a real person. They will develop relationships with the AI. The AI will learn about them. They're going to trust that thing explicitly in the future. as
Oh
if,
yeah, I was just listening to a interview with Mark Benioff from Salesforce, and Salesforce works with some of the biggest enterprise clients out there on the planet, and at this point, I think 50% of their customer services and support is run by AI, and people are fine with it because it's so well trained, and if there's any issue at all, then a human jumps right in, and the human can see the entire transcript
yeah,
and provide just a super high level of customer service for fractions of the cost, which
that's
you
that's
know
why
so
it's a watershed moment in human history here, and
it
the
really
assumption
is.
that
It really
people
is.
want
And
to talk
people,
to people and the traditional sales models are going to work in the next year or two is
oh
a
yeah,
pretty old assumption. Uh,
yep.
and we're going to, and that's why that's why I thought I need to learn about AI because just
I think
you
there'll
don't
be a
get on the
place for
yeah
I
yeah
I think there'll be a place for it. There's always going to be pushback. There's always going to be fringe stuff. I think, but
yeah.
we've seen the evolution of what would happen with the iPhone going forward, and this is just AI is bigger than the internet and the iPhone combined, honestly. But I think there'll just be how to say that. I think though it's not necessarily pushback. I think people will appreciate more in-person meetups. I know
Yes.
that seems weird, but I think they're going to want that level of connection. But the level of ideas that will transpire in the not too distant future because of what we're able to accomplish through AI when we're not in person with each other is just going to be a crazy thing to watch. As
It is
somebody
going to be a
that's
crazy thing
I'm
to watch.
you
And
know
I have to watch
yeah.
myself too because I've caught myself stopping thinking that I'll put a simple question into an AI, get a complex answer and go trace it down the rabbit hole and think, I'm not thinking here, it's thinking, right? Um,
Yeah.
I need to make sure that I don't fall into the trap of stopping my own brain, right? But this is, applying rational thinking to certain things. And this is the risk that I think people have mentioned in schools now, that the kids training on AI, learning AI, are not training their own brain to think. And I think it's an easy trap to fall into to
Yeah.
use an AI for a simple question, burn an hour chasing that rabbit and realize you could have done it yourself in 5 minutes if you just thought about it. That
Yeah.
it takes you down a maze and knowing when to
Yeah.
stop and go, hang on, that's not important. Because it is very engaging.
Mm-hmm.
And and so this is going to be some of the challenges for engineering companies, right? Is to how to manage that time in AI that can burn that time tremendously. I
Yeah.
think you can try and develop things to an nth degree. And it's like, when's good enough? When do you stop? So there are a lot of, I know we're weaving all over the place here a little bit, but
No, I think it's
so,
no, no. I think it's been a perfectly good flow, right into what you do, right into the world of AI. I mean, yeah, I think it's what's interesting about all that is like I bet you have like if you have all your presentations because I know I've seen you speak all over the years. You should take all of your presentations if you haven't already done so and just upload it into your ChatGPT account. You
well,
know.
this is one of the my great regrets, and is that when you're laid off, you're given 30 minutes, and they lock you out of the system.
Oh, it's all your presentations on the
So
system? Ah, I'm sorry
20,
to hear that.
20 years of material is sitting on the server somewhere, and I'd love to get it out and to do exactly what you're saying, but it's not mine. It belongs to the company.
Yeah.
It's there, even though it's public. So I can go around and I can look at the old recorded stuff that's for past
Oh
conferences,
yeah, 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 yeah.
and I can find some of it. But I sort of,
Yeah.
it would have been fantastic if I could have laid,
Oh my
position. So,
goodness.
that
Heck yeah.
because
Mm-hmm.
there's on that drive is and this is something that maybe happens in corporations that don't realize it, that when they lay off people with 20 years of experience, those
Mm-hmm.
people do have a lot of history in their laptops or on their computers, on their OneDrives. And kind of they know it indexed in their brain where it is, what it is, how it applies. And it's kind of just pushed off to a cupboard now. And it's that volume of material that's gathering dust. Unless someone goes
Yep.
through it, try and works it out.
Unless somebody creates a software based on AI that goes through and takes all that kind of information and data, categorize it, pulls it out, and then they've got this virtual you, right, that you're not getting credit for anymore. That's sitting somewhere to help train the next generation, which is actually a pretty good segue as we kind of wrap up. Like, so as we've kind of scared the crap out of everybody a little bit, and hopefully maybe showed them some some upside, some of this stuff as well. What advice would you give someone that's entering stormwater today? And we'll kind of wrap up with that, Phil.
Oh, yeah. Entering stormwater today, that
just learn AI.
Learn AI. I think I would actually advise them to look for those smaller companies, right? It's hard these days when you're working for an increasing area of consolidation, and companies get bigger and bigger. But you need a broad range of exposure. So, and you see this now with people, move. Don't be afraid to move, right? And to get that broad exposure, and not get too narrow a focus. That broad range of experience is going to be important when you as you look around and go, hey, what else can I do? When something in your life changes, and you need to broaden that base and say, what else can I do? It's that broad range of experience, and not to get too focused on, hey, I really enjoy this, I'm just going to focus on this. And you get pigeonholed, right? You don't want to get pigeonholed. So really try and get that broad exposure. Within the companies you have too, you always want to look around and say, what else can I do here? Talk to your manager and say, hey, can I go and work for that? Can I go shadow them for a while? And even to the point, because of multinationals, go, hey, I want to go to that country. Can I do an exchange in that office? Travel, it broadens the mind. For me, travel was a major influence in my life, right? And many Americans don't travel overseas. A lot of them spend time overseas. You've got a tremendously big country here, and you can travel your whole life within this country and see so much. But to go and work and live in another country, a couple of countries for 3 or 4 years, it really is a personal growth opportunity. So take those opportunities if they're available in your company to go into office, into country, especially when you're young, you don't have commitments.
Right.
Travel is wonderful. That's my big retirement plan. Is like get out, see more world.
Right. Do it when you're young, and do it when you can, when you're older, but definitely do it when you're young. That's definitely great advice. Phil, I'm glad we got to do this today. I appreciate your time as you continue your journey down the AI rabbit hole. If as you build some of these apps, if you want to come back on in the future and share with everybody some things that you've done or things that you figured out, and especially if it's in terms of hydrology or stormwater and what you've kind of created using AI, I'd love to have you back on and just do a whole segment, an additional segment on that. We talked about it enough. We may even call this episode something around AI and stormwater, because it is that important. Any final parting thoughts before we end the pod?
I hope that I'll be seeing a lot more people in the near future, coming into 2026. I think I'll be out there again on the conference circuit, talking more. I can't tell you exactly what that's about at the moment, but I'm hoping that we'll have new stuff to bring forward, research material to bring forward. I'm looking forward to doing that in the future. Yeah. So change is opportunity. That's the big thing, right? Change is opportunity.
Yeah.
And
well, that's awesome.
Yeah. Opportunity is out there.
Well, look at you leaving us a teaser. So keep an eye out for Phil Taylor speaking at a conference near you in 2026. Yeah. He's got some new material for us. Phil, thanks again for being on the pod. I think that's it. I think that's the episode. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Stormwater World Podcast, and a big thank you to our sponsor, Bloxam & Company, home of the coconut fiber stormwater inlet filter that is super easy to install and maintain. Make sure you go check them out. That's Bloxam & Company. You can check them out at bloxam.com. That's BLOCKSOM.com. And we'll see you on the next episode.